Hello. So I just wanted to give an update on what's been going on with Little Libertarians. I also wanted to give a few thoughts on the election tomorrow, but more importantly on the environment surrounding it and how that ties into why I created Little Libertarians in the first place and why I think it's so important. Before I get into that, I just want to say a few thank yous. First of all, thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon. I've had a lot of people ask me how they can support Little Libertarians even if they don't have little kids. Supporting us on Patreon is just fantastic. It will sustain us. It'll allow us to come up with so many new different products. It will help us reach a broader audience because it will allow us to lower our prices. There are so many costs associated with creating books, from printing to design to just shipping. It's pretty expensive. It's really time consuming. So to the extent that you can support us with a monthly gift, that is just incredible. And it can be really small. It doesn't really matter. What matters more is how many people that we reach. So if you could imagine paying, let's say, $2 a month, the other thing is it's not necessarily just for free. If you do have kids, we have different tiers of patronage. So you can get ebooks, you can get print books. We're going to have cartoons, hopefully. So if you'd be willing to support us on Patreon, that is just incredible, and the link will be below. And that's really the most helpful thing that you can do to help support us. I want to thank also everyone who's been buying our books. It's been so incredible to just put these books on sale and just sell out of them, which we've done both times that we've listed books for sale. So our store is now open. We do have more books coming, but they're on back order. They should be coming towards the end of this week. We already have people putting back orders in. You can put yours in now. You just go to littlelibertarians.com, and I'll also include the link below directly to the book. The book that we have available right now in print is called Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Toys. We have that book also available in ebook, in audiobook. Speaking of ebooks and audiobooks, I want to thank everyone who's coming to the store and buying our digital products. So we don't just have the print books available. We have ebooks and audiobooks. We also have lesson plans that I've created. It's almost a full week of lesson plans. I still have one more left that's going to round out, let's say, a full week of lesson plans. The topics that we have right now, and each of these is for one day, are self-ownership, non-aggression, consent, and what else? Mutual exchange. So these are not really lesson plans that you find anywhere else. In fact, I've had parents send me all kinds of weird stuff that their kids get at government schools that are just crazy. And these lesson plans are intended to promote skepticism and free thought, which I think, unfortunately, kids are not always getting elsewhere these days. Basically, these are libertarian basics for kids. That's going to be what the full suite is called, let's say, it's when it's done. And each one you can go day by day. And the lesson plans can be used from... I would say they're good. It obviously depends on the child, but I would say they're good anywhere from beginning with kindergarten, maybe even preschool age towards third grade. And the reason is, if they're towards third grade, it might still be the first time that they're hearing about these topics in, let's say, a lesson plan type format. And if they're in third grade, they can be reading it themselves. They can be going through it alone, whereas a younger child might need some help and guidance. But the topics there are pretty age appropriate, and I always use examples that are from real life. So I want to thank, back to the concept of our digital products, I want to thank everyone who's buying these digital products, because actually that's another huge way, similar to Patreon, another huge way of helping us. When we sell the books, we're barely doing it at cost. It's just expensive to print books, and it's going to take time for us to scale and get to the point where we can print books and sell them at any kind of profit. It's just a really, really hard thing to do, especially when I'm trying to get these books to people affordably. And if you own one of our books, you'll see it's pretty small. And eventually, we're just starting out here, but eventually I'd like to get these books in hardcover. I'd like to do board books. I want to do so much more, but it's just really, really difficult being self-funded, putting all my own money in this, because it's something I really believe in, to be selling print books at any kind of profit. We're basically losing money on the books because of the amount of time it takes, the amount of printing costs, the amount to ship them. Whereas if you're buying our digital products, it's sort of like there is some cost in producing it, but it's much, much more scalable, and it really, really helps us. So if you're watching this because you're someone who wants to help bring these books to more kids, it's really, really helpful if you buy our digital products. It's just incredible. Okay, so I guess I gave a lot of updates while I was giving those thank yous. But just a few more updates. So our store is open. Obviously, you can get everything there. Our book is also available on Amazon, but only the ebook, whereas you can get the print book through our website. The website is littlelibertarians.com. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. We haven't had an Instagram yet, but I'm going to be making one of those soon. That's going to be our next social network. And updates in terms of ebooks. We're going to have an ebook available called The Happy Porcupine, which the topic is self-defense. That should be available any day now. I'm going to be starting to write a book that's going to be for the holidays. It's probably only going to be available in ebook in time for the holidays. But, don't forget, Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Toys is probably a really nice stocking stuffer. So, unfortunately, I won't be able to get a print book in time for the holidays. It's just not feasible. It's too expensive to be printing multiple books at once. Oh, you can see Herman back there. It's too expensive to be printing multiple books at once. I need to grow our audience. But hopefully this time next year, if everything goes as planned, that we should be able to get the ebook that I'm creating right now available in print book in time for the holidays. What else? So as I mentioned previously, we have run out of the print copies of Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Toys, but we should be receiving a new shipment soon. It's actually scheduled for November 7th. So for those who have already back ordered it, for those who wish to back order it now, can place your order. I'll be getting those books out as soon as we get them in. Upcoming appearances, I'll be on the Taxation is Theft show with Daniel Berman. He'll post a link to that so you can watch it live on his Facebook page, or if you can't watch it live, it'll be posted afterwards on his Facebook and I believe on his YouTube channel as well. And what else? Are there other updates? I guess that's everything. Thanks for your support, everyone. Keep liking, keep sharing. Now, I just wanted to talk really briefly about the election. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the environment with this election is just so nasty, as it is with every election. It seems to be increasing. I don't know if it's just one of those things where you always feel like it gets worse and worse, but really it's, always like getting worse. But it feels pretty bad. And I wanted to kind of link that in with what I'm doing with Little Libertarians. I think it's obvious to most people who identify as we do that this mutual hatred, mutual enmity is largely manufactured. In my view, it's the most natural thing in the world for us to kind of devolve into tribalism. I think anyone who is a kind of student of psychology or someone who watches the world or reads a lot knows that tribalism is our basic instinct, and we all have it within us. So that when people who are trying to make money in, whether it be through political marketing, lobbying, etc., they know how to appeal to our basest interests, and those interests are so easy to appeal to. I mean, even the most intellectual people, sometimes the most intellectual people are the most susceptible to this kind of thing. And it really takes someone to step back and say, none of this, or a large portion of this, it's just not true. The way that we feel about each other, the way that we think about people who disagree, the reason we find them so ridiculous is because everyone's painting caricatures of other people, and then they're arguing against these caricatures. And so, I am personally, I come to libertarianism more from the right, and I find Democrats, when they're in power, to be largely terrifying. At the same time, it's all too easy for someone like me to fall into this thing of like, oh, all Democrats want is power, and all, they want is to take over everything. And in reality, what most Democrats are people who maybe have a big heart or think a lot with their emotions, and so, they might be susceptible to this messaging that the Democratic Party puts out. And Republicans, on the other hand, are in some ways, I don't know, equally guilty, but in some ways also, depending on the campaign, sometimes pretty bad in appealing to baser emotions. And so you get this feeling from both sides that the other side is just evil, and it's just not possible. 50% of the population isn't evil, but a large much greater proportion of the population than 50% is susceptible to these types of tactics, and we're all very tribal. Even those of us who are aware of it are still susceptible to it. So what the way I'm going to tie Little Libertarians into this is, people ask me, are these books political? They're not political. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to write political books for children. I think that's absurd. They're philosophical, and I think that people who tend to vote libertarian, or people who tend to think along libertarian lines, really what they're doing is they're taking a philosophy and they're generalizing it to the political sphere. And so to me, that philosophy is non-aggression, and it largely comes from a place of mutual respect, right? It comes from a place of thinking in the long term rather than the short term, and thinking, okay, I have my way, you have yours. And so with these lesson plans, what I want to create more of in the world, like, I don't care, I'm not trying to create thousands or millions of little libertarian voters. That I don't think we need, it would be nice to have more libertarian voters, but what we need is more libertarian thinkers and people who live their lives on a day-to-day, like, voluntarist type basis, people who see problems, identify them, and say, okay, I'm not going to try to get someone to fix this on my behalf. I'm going to try to fix this myself. That type of thinking, that's how I identify as libertarian thinking. You have the non-aggression principle, which, if you go by the official libertarian standard, that's at the core of libertarianism. I think there's more to it. I think it's, I think the golden rule is a large part of libertarianism, and is what the non-aggression principle really stems from. Recognizing the sovereignty of others. I want to make lesson plans that help reduce this tension by creating the type of thinking that allows a situation to de-escalate because of mutual respect. And I think that when you look at the type of things that are out there, it's just, there's no encouragement of skepticism. And when you don't encourage skepticism, you're encouraging someone to just sop up a message without ever thinking, okay, well, there's someone else on the other side of it, right? Nothing is ever entirely good or entirely bad. No one is entirely good or entirely evil. There's something else on the other side of this. And so the lessons out there are not getting this across. And I think largely what we see happening in politics is the result of a generation that only heard one side of the story in schools, that only were interested in telling one side of the story. And we need to counter that. And what I'm trying to do is use life lessons that basically any parent would teach their kid. Like any parent, most parents, not any parent. Like I can't speak for the socialist parent, right? But most parents are going to teach their kids something along the lines of non-aggression, right? But they're not going to call it non-aggression. And they're not gonna, so, they'll say, okay, well, don't hit, but they're not gonna explain, okay, well, why don't you hit? And I think that kids can understand that from a young age, and I think that when you teach kids these concepts, maybe later on they can generalize them to the political sphere, or maybe they don't. Maybe they just generalize them to how they live their life. Maybe we can have more people who are thinking in a libertarian way. Maybe we can all have a little bit more respect for each other, and maybe we can de-escalate things and de-escalate tribalism. And maybe in the future, we look back at this time and think how comical it was, how our elections were so crazy, and how people were so simple and so black and white, and how even the really smart, sophisticated people were subject to, I don't know, I like to think about Beanie Babies, right? We all kind of fell for Beanie Babies. Even the most smart, most sophisticated people fall into the most basic traps when they're not thinking philosophically. And that's why Little Libertarians is so important to me, and why I'm going to keep trying to tailor this message and keep trying to actually hear your feedback and make it better, and trying to get your support to help it reach more people. So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me on this Little Libertarians journey. Remember, in your own life, let's help de-escalate the tension of this election. Let's all be a little bit kinder. Let's all be a little bit more libertarian in our own lives. And I'd love to hear your thoughts.